Thank you, thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
We've been living together for a while, so I call him my partner. All right, that's what I call him. He's my partner, and he hates it. Because I'm a tomboy, and he is a small, effeminate man. So every once in a while, someone will just get a little too woke, you know? I'm like, over there, that's my partner, Steve. And someone will be like, oh, are they happy? How are they doing? And I'm just like, they're great. And he's just off in the corner like, tell him I'm a boy. And I have to be like, true ally wouldn't care. Come on. I'm not going to marry a bigot. Also, stop wearing V-necks. That's on you.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Apollo Wednesday, October the 2nd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and the Apollo program. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
with you, Adam Johnson, Lee Carter, Tricia McLaughlin. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Barney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. And the consensus is Vance won. Even the New York Times said he was dominant. Walz looked nervous and uncertain. He pulled off a minor win on abortion, forcing Vance to admit the Republicans needed to do a better job. Vance successfully revealed Harris's abysmal record on the economy and the border, two big issues the Democrats wanted to run away from. The moderators, well, they didn't do too well. No questions about the port strike. And Margaret Brennan tried to fact-check Vance, which she's not supposed to do. Vance dealt with that with a calm voice, made his point, even though they'd muted his mic. We've got a lot more on that debate for you. To the markets. Big drop Tuesday with concern over Iran's missile attack on Israel. Minor selling so far this morning. The Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, small losses all round. Nike, that's the stock to watch. Its turnaround is not going well, and the stock is getting hammered. It is down 7%. As for Bitcoin, you're looking at 60,800 per coin. We've got a flight to the safety of Treasury bonds, and that's keeping rates relatively low, but the yield on the 10-year Treasury has moved to 380. And the 2-year, that was around 364, is moved up to 366. Oil now close to $72 a barrel, and we have gas at 320, no change, diesel 357. Gold staying up there because of the fighting in the Mideast, but it's down $18 today, 26.71 per ounce. There's news on that. Israel will retaliate for Iran's missile attack. Nearly 200 rockets rained down on Israel. Most were shot down. Some got through. We don't know how or when Israel will respond, but they're not likely to de-escalate. On the show today, the port strike. Biden under intense pressure to get involved before the economy takes a hit. He says he won't, but inflation and shortages right before the election will not help Harris. We're getting a closer look at the damage caused by Helene. 161 deaths reported. That number is likely to rise. Asheville, devastated. The president visits North Carolina today. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024.
And that was Stuart Varney's headlines. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bill Maher.
Bill Maher at it again. It is.
It's like a cult. Do you have any sort of explanation of how this is going to happen to so many formerly, seem sensible people?
Part of it, the left has to own. They are aggressively anti-common sense. The Democrats keep running on this one idea, saying to the American people, you can't possibly think you can do worse than Donald Trump. And they keep saying, yes, we can. Yeah. Yes, we can. And they are always bitching to me about their kids who are like in their 20s, and they're like super uber woke, and they're driving their parents crazy. And everything is like, you don't get it, Mom. That's old thinking. And I'm like, don't get what? Abolish the police? Tear down statues of Lincoln? Maybe give communism another shot? Gender is always just a social construct. It's okay to have penises in the women's swimming pool in women's prisons. It's not that I'm old. It's that your ideas are stupid.
And that was Bill Maher. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, instead of having a patriotic short, we're going to have a 9-minute briefing about the SR-72 Dark Star.
The SR-72, often dubbed the Son of Blackbird, represents the next evolutionary leap in hypersonic aviation, following the legendary SR-71 Blackbird. Developed by Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, the SR-72 is designed to fly at speeds of up to Mach 6, significantly faster than its predecessor. With an intended role in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR, and potentially precision strikes, the SR-72 will possess both tactical and strategic capabilities that could redefine modern aerial warfare. Before diving into the SR-72's capabilities, it's important to understand the foundation laid by the SR-71 Blackbird. The SR-71 was introduced in the 1960s and maintained its status as the world's fastest jet-propelled aircraft until its retirement in 1998. Capable of reaching speeds of Mach 3+, or approximately 2,200 miles per hour, and altitudes exceeding 85,000 feet, the SR-71 could fly faster and higher than any adversary's air defenses. The aircraft conducted vital reconnaissance missions over hostile territories, including the Soviet Union and North Vietnam, and could evade interception through its sheer speed and altitude. Despite its phenomenal performance, the SR-71 was not without limitations. The rise of satellite surveillance reduced the necessity for high-speed manned reconnaissance aircraft, and advancements in air-to-air missile technology increased the risk to such aircraft. Still, the SR-71 proved the value of high-speed, high-altitude reconnaissance, providing real-time intelligence when satellite systems faced operational or positional limitations. The SR-72 seeks to build upon the SR-71's strengths while overcoming its limitations. Hypersonic speeds, defined as Mach 5 or higher, are not just about traveling fast, but also about outpacing and outmaneuvering even the most advanced air defense systems. The speed of the SR-72, expected to reach Mach 6 or approximately 4,600 miles per hour, represents an insurmountable challenge to most current missile defense systems, which are designed to track and intercept aircraft traveling at subsonic or supersonic speeds. This increased velocity allows the SR-72 to conduct missions faster and with less vulnerability to enemy countermeasures. At Mach 6, an aircraft would generate temperatures of over 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,927 degrees Celsius on its leading surfaces due to air friction. This creates unique material and engineering challenges, as conventional aircraft materials cannot withstand such intense heat. The SR-72 will need advanced composites and thermal shielding technologies to survive in this hostile environment. Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, renowned for its ability to tackle such cutting-edge challenges, is developing new heat-resistant materials, such as ceramic composites, which can maintain structural integrity at extreme temperatures. The SR-72's ability to achieve hypersonic speeds hinges on a revolutionary dual-mode propulsion system that combines turbine engines with scramjets. At lower speeds, the SR-72 will utilize a traditional turbine engine, similar to those found in commercial jets and military aircraft. Once the aircraft reaches supersonic speeds, it will transition to a scramjet, or a supersonic combustion ramjet engine, which uses the aircraft's forward momentum to compress incoming air for combustion. The scramjet is vital for achieving and sustaining hypersonic speeds. Unlike traditional jet engines, which rely on compressors to compress air before it mixes with fuel for combustion, the scramjet does this through the sheer velocity of the aircraft. Air enters the scramjet at supersonic speeds, mixes with fuel, and ignites, propelling the aircraft even faster. Because the scramjet has no moving parts, it is simpler in design, but requires very high speeds to function. This dual-mode propulsion allows the SR-72 to cover a wide range of speeds, making it versatile in its operational roles. While speed is the SR-72's primary defense, stealth remains a crucial aspect of its survivability. The SR-71 Blackbird was a pioneer in stealth design, with its radar-absorbing materials and minimal radar cross-section, or RCS. The SR-72 will improve upon these features, integrating advanced radar-absorbing materials and coatings that reduce its detectability. At hypersonic speeds, the SR-72's heat signature will be enormous, potentially making it easier to detect via infrared sensors. Addressing this challenge requires innovations in heat dissipation and signature management. One approach could involve using the aircraft's high speed to minimize its exposure to sensors, as well as advanced cooling systems to reduce its infrared signature. It's also expected that the SR-72's design will incorporate faceted surfaces to deflect radar signals, similar to the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning II. The primary mission of the SR-72 will likely mirror that of its predecessor: intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR. The ability to fly at Mach 6 would allow the SR-72 to cover vast areas in a fraction of the time that current UAVs or manned aircraft can, making it an invaluable asset for time-sensitive missions. The SR-72's sensors and reconnaissance systems will be far more advanced than those of the SR-71, taking advantage of modern electro-optical, radar, and signal intelligence technologies. Beyond its ISR role, the SR-72 could also serve as a high-speed strike platform. Its ability to reach any location on Earth within hours makes it ideal for rapid precision strikes. At hypersonic speeds, it could deliver kinetic weapons or hypersonic missiles with pinpoint accuracy, neutralizing high-value targets in contested areas. Hypersonic weapons, by traveling faster than Mach 5, are virtually impossible to intercept with current missile defense systems, making the SR-72 a formidable platform for both reconnaissance and strike operations. One of the most debated aspects of the SR-72's development is whether it will be a manned or unmanned aircraft. Lockheed Martin has indicated that the SR-72 could be designed as a UAV, benefiting from advancements in autonomous flight technology. Autonomous systems would allow the SR-72 to undertake high-risk missions without endangering a pilot's life, particularly in areas with heavy air defenses. On the other hand, there are arguments for a manned version of the SR-72. Human pilots bring situational awareness, adaptability, and decision-making capabilities that autonomous systems cannot replicate. In complex dynamic situations, such as contested airspace or rapidly changing mission parameters, a pilot's intuition and judgment can be invaluable. The SR-72 could potentially be developed in both manned and unmanned variants, depending on the mission profile and operational requirements. Furthermore, the SR-72's potential as a strike platform could shift the balance of power, as no current or near-future air defense systems are capable of countering a hypersonic aircraft or weapon. However, the SR-72 is not being developed in a vacuum. Both China and Russia are investing heavily in hypersonic technologies, viewing them as essential to future warfare. China's DF-ZF hypersonic glide vehicle and Russia's Avangard hypersonic missile are examples of the global race toward hypersonic dominance. The SR-72 represents the U.S.'s answer to these developments, aiming to maintain its technological edge in this new arena. While the promise of the SR-72 is immense, the path to its development is fraught with challenges. Achieving and sustaining hypersonic flight over long distances requires significant advances in material science, engine technology, and avionics. The scramjet engine, in particular, remains an area of active research, as its operational envelope is still relatively narrow compared to traditional jet engines. Moreover, the cost of developing, testing, and producing the SR-72 could run into billions of dollars. The U.S. defense budget is already stretched by competing priorities, such as modernizing the nuclear triad, developing new naval capabilities, and maintaining a strong cyber defense posture. The SR-72 will need to demonstrate clear operational advantages to justify the expense of its development and deployment. The SR-72 Dark Star is set to redefine the boundaries of aviation, pushing the limits of speed, stealth, and ISR capabilities. Building on the legacy of the SR-71 Blackbird, it promises to be an indispensable asset for the U.S. military in a rapidly evolving global security environment.
And that was the SR. Thank you. And now, about 8 minutes of motivation.
I need you to do me a huge favor. On three, beast mode. 1, 2, 3. Beast mode. Rich people don't waste time. They realize it's their most important commodity. They don't watch a lot of TV. They don't do a lot of entertainment. If they're not working, they're studying their craft and getting better at their craft. So I need you to stop having the poverty mindset. So when I quit my job to be an entrepreneur, my mom was like, whoa, what are you doing? I was like, I'm quitting. My mom was like, don't you dare quit. You're going to embarrass me. You got a wife and kids. Does YouTube have insurance? Does YouTube have a 401k? And I was like, yo, Mom, I ain't trying to be funny and I ain't trying to be disrespectful. I love you. But you can't teach me how to be a millionaire because you're not. You come from the working class, and I'm not mad at you, Mom. We wouldn't be where we are without you. But you told me that every generation is supposed to get better. So I'll take your values, but I won't take your work ethic. Because rich people don't work, they think. Poor people go, clock in, I make this much an hour. Rich people go, I put them to work, and I make this much an hour. See, what happens is you're working for you and your family one, they got 40 of you working at one time. So they're giving you 20%, and then they keeping the 80% off of 15,000 people. So what you have to decide is, are you going to keep being the 99%, or are you ready to be a part of the 1%? When you want this thing as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you find a way. You have an opportunity right now. A real man in the dark, when nobody's watching, he putting in work. A real man, when coach ain't even watching, he's studying film on his own. Because he loves the process. Because real lions like to hunt. They love the process just as much as they love the prize. If you will be a champion, if you will be a beast, you're going to have to go through something.
Crisis is not a permanent condition. And crisis is a human description. It's just a season. This is important. And the key to life is outlasting the season. The key to life is outlasting the season. If you can stay warm long enough, summer will come. In other words, the season for you to leave the job you are on has come. Why? There's a better one up ahead. He got to prepare you for that. So he got to close out one chapter to open a bigger chapter. Get ready for something big, 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 bigger than what you had.
What will you do with your pain? Will you let it break you, or will you let it redefine you?
Seasons of crisis. Everybody say it with me. Overcoming seasons of crisis.
That no one can do it for you but you. And even though you face disappointments, even though you will experience some setbacks, it goes with the territory. You must understand that.
Life has taught me that you will grow through what you go through. Life has taught me for every level, there's another devil. Life has taught me that the depth of your struggle will determine the height of your success.
What will you do with your pain? Will you let it break you, or will you let it redefine you? And hear me, everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got a goal. Everybody wants something in life. But many of you in this room right now, your beast mode is idle. Your beast mode is not turned on. And when you leave this place, I'm telling you, your life is going to go to a whole nother level if you can learn to turn that switch on and keep that switch on. I need you to recycle your pain. I want you to recycle your pain. Now, many of you, when you get this water bottle, you might be thinking this is the first time, that this is the very first time this particular plastic was formed. And we don't know. This could have come from me. Right? So you got to do me a huge favor. Because what you're going to discover as you're going towards your dreams, as you're going towards your goal, there's going to be so many distractions. There's going to be so many people that haters, so many people that come up against you, so many obstacles, so many trials, so many tribulations. When people ask me, E.T., like for real, E, I know you can give me 20 things that you've done to help yourself to become successful. But E.T., I just need like one or two. Can you give me one or two? And one of the things I tell people is, I outlasted the pain. I outlasted the pain. When I was sleeping in those abandoned buildings, I kept telling myself, one day you'll be a homeowner. Every time I walked into that abandoned building, I told myself that this might be your current circumstances, but this will not be how the story ends. All you have to do, E.T., is to survive today. To survive today. When they kicked me out of school, I knew that I would not be a high school dropout for the rest of my life. I knew I got to get through this one day. Every single day when I woke up in that abandoned building, one day,
One day is going to be E.T.'s day, but that day can't come if I give up today. Soon it will be my day, and I will recycle my pain. When I didn't grow up with my biological father, he wasn't in my life until I was 30 years old. But I told myself, today, your father is not in your life, but one day. My mom and I have gone months and almost years of not talking to each other, but every single day I kept telling myself, one day I'll have a great relationship with my mom again. One day. What will you do with your pain? Will you let it break you or will you let it redefine you? I outlasted the pain. I outlasted the pain. On 3, beast mode. 1, 2, 3. Beast mode.
And that was the little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, about 5 minutes of meditation. And that was a little bit of motivation or meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Daily Stoic.
Ready and at home. I may wish to be free from torture, but if the time comes for me to endure it, I'll wish to bear it courageously with bravery and honor. Wouldn't I prefer not to fall into war? But if war does befall me, I'll wish to carry nobly the wounds, starvation, and other necessities of war. Neither am I so crazy as to desire illness, but if I must suffer illness, I'll wish to do nothing rash or dishonorable. The point is not to wish for these adversities, but for the virtue that makes adversities bearable. Seneca, Moral Letters, 67.4. President James Garfield was a great man, raised in humble circumstances, self-educated, and eventually a Civil War hero, whose presidency was cut short by an assassin's bullet. In his brief time in office, he faced a bitterly divided country, as well as a bitterly and internally divided Republican Party. During one fight, which challenged the very authority of his office, he stood firm, telling an advisor, "Of course I deprecate war, but if it is brought to my door, the bringer will find me at home." That's what Seneca is saying here. We'd be crazy to want to face difficulty in life, but we'd be equally crazy to pretend that it isn't going to happen. Which is why, when it knocks on our door, as it very well may this morning, let's make sure we're prepared to answer. Not the way we are when a surprise visitor comes late at night, but the way we are when we're waiting for an important guest, dressed in the right headspace, ready to go.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
There was a notorious gangland hitman in Chicago. This goes back to like the 1930s or 40s. Someone whose whole life is dedicated to killing people. And he was involved in some kind of shootout, and he's lying in the street, dying. He was a Catholic, though, and he had the presence of mind to ask for a priest to come. And the priest came. And with his dying breaths, this man confessed his sins and then died. And the priest was asked about it, and he said, well, yeah, I'm sure he'll require purgatory. But yes, this man will go to heaven, just as St. Francis of Assisi went to heaven. It caused a real furor in the press. People writing letters in, complaining. This hitman, this terrible person, this with one simple confession, he'll get the same heaven that St. Francis gets? Doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem fair or just. You see how the resentment we feel is a sign that we haven't yet got this right, that we haven't thought this through. If you're wearing your religious obligation like a terrible albatross around your neck, then you haven't gotten it yet.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand quote of the day. Quote, "A right is a moral principle defining and sanctioning a man's freedom of action in a social context. There's only one fundamental right. All the others are its consequences or corollaries. Man's right to his own life." Unquote. And that was Ayn Rand from Man's Rights, from the book, The Virtue of Selfishness. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the 33 strategies of war.
Keys to warfare. In the course of our daily lives, we are subject to fears of many kinds. These fears are generally related to something specific. Someone might harm us. A particular problem is brewing. We are threatened by disease or even death itself. In the throes of any deep fear, our willpower is momentarily paralyzed as we contemplate the bad that could happen to us. If this condition lasted too long or were too intense, it would make life unbearable. So we find ways to avoid these thoughts and ease our fears. Maybe we turn to the distractions of daily life, work, social routines, activities with friends. Religion or some other belief system, such as faith in technology or science, might also offer hope. These distractions and beliefs become the ground beneath us, keeping us upright and able to walk on without the paralysis that fear can bring. Under certain circumstances, however, this ground can fall away from under us, and then there is nothing we can do to steady ourselves. In the course of history, we can track a kind of madness that overcomes humans during certain disasters: a great earthquake, a ferocious plague, a violent civil war. What troubles us most in these situations is not any specific dreadful event that happened in the recent past. We have a tremendous capacity to overcome and adapt to anything horrible. It is the uncertain future, the fear that more terrible things are coming, and that we might soon suffer some unpredictable tragedy. That is what unnerves us. We cannot crowd out these thoughts with routines or religion. Fear becomes chronic and intense, our minds besieged by all kinds of irrational thoughts. The specific fears become more general. Among a group, panic will set in. In essence, this is terror, an intense, overpowering fear that we cannot manage or get rid of in the normal way. There is too much uncertainty. Too many bad things can happen to us.
And that was a 33 Strategies of War. Back in a minute. Thank you. If you're a Democrat, you should vote Republican because aggression against others reverses into aggression against the self. The more a person contains aggression against others, the more strict and coercive the conscience becomes. The internalization of violence also proves useful to the exercise of rule. It ensures that the obedient subject internalizes the external ruling authority, making it a part of itself. This allows the authority to rule with far less effort. Symbolic violence is also a violence that makes use of the mechanism of habit. It inscribes itself within the things that are taken for granted, in habitual patterns of perception and of behavior. Violence is naturalized, as it were. Without the effort of physical, martial violence, it ensures that the established ruling relationship is maintained. The psychological internalization of force also serves disciplinary ends. By way of subtle, discrete interventions, it infiltrates the subject's neural paths and muscle fibers, subjugating it to outside ortho and neurocorrective compulsions and imperatives. The wholesale violence of decapitation, which prevails in the society of sovereignty, yields to the violence of successive subcutaneous deformation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now for my weekly Spreaker statistics. For the week of September 22nd to September 28th, my downloads overall were up significantly. Top 4 countries: United States was up, Canada was up, Australia was down slightly, and India was down slightly. And that was the statistics, my Spreaker statistics for the week of September 22nd to September 28th. Back in a minute. Thank you. So from the Reich account on Instagram, there's a quote from Tim Walz. Quote, "I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever, how is it fair that you are paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years? What's wrong with the system?" Unquote. My response to that is, you are the system, Mr. Walz. You're the governor. You're the system. You tell me. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Chapter 1, Section 2 of Apollo.
2. For several years, the Canadian Aircraft Corporation, AVRO, known as AVRO, had been designing and building what was expected to be the most advanced interceptor in the NATO inventory. A long-range, all-weather, fly-by-wire aircraft with an initial combat speed of Mach 1.5 to be increased eventually to Mach 3.0. The plane was called the Arrow, known to the engineers as the CF-105. A prototype had flown its first test flights in October 1958. By February 1959, the Arrow had reached a speed of nearly Mach 2.1 and was within a few more test flights of setting several world's records. But then the Conservative Party under John Diefenbaker won a parliamentary majority and replaced the Liberal government. The new government decided to cancel the Arrow. The decision was announced in Parliament on February 20th, 1959 at 11 in the morning. 4 hours later, AVRO, in a move that was intended to embarrass the government and force the issue to a head, announced over its PA system that 14,000 employees, virtually everyone associated with the Arrow, were being laid off. The government responded by forbidding AVRO to spend another cent on the project. Within a few days, crews with cutting torches were in the molten hangars, slicing up the arrows for scrap. The cancellation turned into a political scandal of huge proportions and brought anguish and economic hardship to many of the 14,000 employees at AVRO. But there was a bright side if you happened to be Bob Gilruth and desperately short of talent. 4,000 engineers who had designed the most advanced supersonic airplane of its day were suddenly looking for jobs. Jim Chamberlain, head of design for the Arrow, had visited Langley a few years earlier. It had been during the flying saucer craze, and Chamberlain, who had designed a real flying saucer, a pancake-shaped thing with jets, went down to Langley to talk about it. When the Arrow was canceled, Chamberlain thought of the Space Task Group and talked to his chief engineer, who got in touch with the Canadian government. The Canadian government got in touch with NASA, and within a few weeks it had been concluded that some of the AVRO engineers would spend 2 years working for the American manned space program before returning to AVRO, when presumably AVRO would have new work for them. This would be good for the United States, which needed the talent, and good for Canada, whose engineers would return with experience in a new technology. AVRO let Chamberlain put together a book with background information on approximately 150 of the best people in his design team to take down to Langley. Gilruth, Donlan, and 2 other Space Task Group managers flew up to Ontario and interviewed 75 of the candidates. They offered jobs to 35 of them. One of the 35 was Owen Maynard. Maynard was interviewed on a Saturday morning. On Sunday morning, he got a call from Gilruth offering him a job and asking if he could please let him know whether he would be accepting the job by, say, 1 o'clock that afternoon. It didn't take Maynard that long. Not only did he want to help build the Mercury capsule, he wanted to fly it, and he enthusiastically touted his experience with the Mosquito. No, Gilruth said hastily, they weren't recruiting flight crews on this trip, but they were glad to sign him on as an engineer. Others hesitated. You have to understand, Rod Rose, one of several Englishmen in the group, pointed out, there's considerable prejudice north of the border about coming south of the border. South of the border is a big ogre. So at first, Rose refused the offer, but Jim Chamberlain gave him a 2-hour pep talk and persuaded him that his future lay at Langley. 25 of the 35 accepted jobs right away, and another 5 came along later. In all, 30 men were added to the Space Task Group, which at that time still numbered not many more than 100 people. Gilruth and his interviewers returned from Canada elated. However improbably, Project Mercury had skimmed off the top layer of talent at AVRO. Tequin Roberts, a Welshman, remembered Gilruth laughing about it later. We thought of taking more of your crowd from AVRO, Gilruth said to Roberts, but we figured 25% aliens in the American space program was sufficient. The Canadians, as they were known despite the mix of Scotsmen, Welshmen, Irishmen, and even a Frenchman, never gained much public recognition for their contribution to the manned space program. But to the people within the program, their contribution was incalculable. They had it all over us in some areas, just brilliant guys, one of the original Space Task Group engineers remembered. They were more mature and dignified, and they were bright as hell and talented and cordial and professional, to a man.
Glynn Lunny, like many other Americans who were with the Space Task Group, marveled at the serendipity of it all, with the Canadians washing up on the shores of Langley Field at the critical point. They were, thought Lunny, the leavening of the bread. When Owen Maynard drove into Langley for the first time, he was still just a young engineer trying to find his way in a strange place. Finally, he found his destination, Building 58, tucked in beside the 19-foot wind tunnel on Dodd Street. It was a two-story red brick building with a little portico in front, built back in the 1920s as Langley's first headquarters and still called the Administration Building. By 1959, it had long since been second-rate space used for the East Area's cafeteria during World War II, and subsequently for miscellaneous storage and office space. Behind it was Building 104, called the Technical Services Building, said to be the oldest structure anywhere at Langley. Also made of red brick, it was so obscured by its newer neighbors that it was only partially visible from the street. These two buildings constituted the sum total of the facilities of Project Mercury. Maynard parked his car and went into the Administration Building. The little lobby inside the door was charmingly old-fashioned, a small rotunda with painted murals of the history of flight, Icarus, the Wright brothers, and Professor Samuel P. Langley himself. The offices radiated from it, and they too had a certain shabby elegance, with floors of oiled oak and ceilings 12 feet high. But the building was pathetically humble compared to the Avro facilities that Maynard had just left. The Technical Services Building in back turned out to be humbler yet. It felt like a worn-out junior high school building with antique lighting, a roof that leaked during rainstorms, and creaking risers on the old wooden stairs. The 19-foot wind tunnel next door made a terrific racket. There wasn't any air conditioning, and Maynard would soon find that in the heat and humidity of the Virginia summer, he had to take care lest the perspiration from his arms ruin his drawings. As Maynard looked about and made inquiries and listened to the shop talk, he found that it came down to this. About 140 engineers, including the Canadian contingent, most of them youngsters, with borrowed quarters and a strained budget, were supposed to put a man into space and redeem America's technological prestige in the eyes of the world. He was still adjusting to this realization when, a few weeks later, he met a strange fellow named Max Faget. Faget, he discovered, was not content with just getting a man safely into orbit in the Mercury capsule. He was thinking about putting a man on the moon.
And that was Chapter 1, Section 2 of Apollo. Next week, Chapter 2. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you to trust yourself and trust your conscience.